Hey everybody, Nick Miller here from MiniQuadClub.com, and today, guys and gals, we're going to talk about the Taranis Q X7. For those of you who follow my channel for a while now, you'll know that I am a FrSky guy. I have been for a while since I was flying Spectrum at first and had some issues. Went to the FrSky and have not looked back. One of the best parts about this platform has always been the OpenTX software, and that hasn't changed with the Taranis Q X7 as well. I had, when I made this transition from Spectrum to the FrSky over 2 years ago, I did have some issues. None of those were with software. None of those were with receivers. From a receiver standpoint, the D4R2 and the X4Rs I've been using have been flawless, have performed flawless, have not had signal problems, not any loss of connection, not anything. So always been happy with the link connection from FrSky. One of the things I felt that was lacking, however, was the hardware. This thing is big, it's bulky, it's thick, it's got some weight to it, which is okay, but it doesn't have much grip really. It's got this cheap plastic back and nothing on the side either. And then you come around here and ergonomically you're just greeted with some kind of sharp-edged plastic stuff and a bunch of buttons and switches and stuff. And for the average drone pilot, you're probably looking at this saying, man, this looks complicated. And it's not complicated, don't get me wrong, but at the same time it is. And it's complicated from it's too much. And so the issue had always been up until now in this hobby that when you asked a professional pilot or a guy who was a professional hobbyist, so to speak, and really knew what he was talking about, 9 times out of 10, if they were going to talk about radios, you were talking about spending $200 and most likely picking up, a $200 Taranis or something around 200 or more for a Spectrum. And those were the only two options you really had. And it was frustrating because I had people that I knew wanted to get into the hobby, but you always tell them the goggles and the radio are the two pricey pieces of it. This was a $200 stumbling block. You couldn't really do anything like this for anything less. Well, 105 compared to 205, and that's an amazing thing. $105 US pesos will get you the Taranis Q X7, and that's just an amazing value. So we're gonna do a little unboxing here real quick. So very much the same as the other Taranis box, which is sitting over here, and I'm not gonna get into it's just a box, but a little outline on the front, a little logoing, nice job there. You open it up, hey, you're welcome. You get a nice little thanks from FrSky right there. Oh, so you get some shiny stickers, and that's really cool. I really dig stickers, and so really cool to get a whole sheet rather than just one. So 2 thumbs up to that. Thank you, FrSky. Put these guys here. You get a little instructional pamphlet, which other than maybe reading a couple of details about the thingamabobbers or the whirligigs, there's some flying safety tips in here. Talks about some tow insure, the safety. So whatever tow insure, that's what we talk about. But in all seriousness, no one's looking at these anyways. So let's just take this lid off here. Now you're gonna see that I already cheated because I already swapped this. I opened it. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to give you guys a little taste of what it would have been like. It came in some little plastic wrap, and these are obviously my aftermarket nubbies. So again, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna lie though, I was already into it. So you get a nice little FrSky lanyard, and then let's just slide it out of here. Let's just get it out of here. So here is the X7 Taranis. I'm gonna bring out the Plus. Now here's something that's kind of funny. So when you see them next to each other, kind of looks like this guy's massive compared to it. Kind of looks like it's a lot bigger. And let me tell you, looks are deceiving when they're side by side. When you stand them up end on end, you actually got more height on this guy. Width-wise, when you stack them, you could see that it's not really much wider. You're only talking about the curve of the ergonomic side that actually sticks out, and that's it, and not much at all. So don't let the pictures side by side discourage you. It's not a big radio. It feels wider this way when you hold it because there's more room to hold things and less stuff everywhere, which I like actually. So don't let that fool you. Where it's definitely advantageous is, let's flip these guys around this way So you can really see how the Taranis Plus looks like it just came home from Thanksgiving dinner. It's kind of bulging at the seams and kind of big and just, kind of bulky. And again, not anything wrong with it per se, but let's take a little profile. I mean, you could see the slenderness of this. Now, other than the grips on the back, it's a much more compact experience this way than this guy right here. So you can see from this view as well the things that we're missing to bring the cost down. We have one switch up top versus the two. No rotatey knob thing that just got caught on my backpack all the time anyway. As we'll flip it around this way, you can see from here you got one less switch there, and you got one more, one less little other rotatey thing that just got caught on my backpack that I never used either. So around to the front, since we're talking about the switches, we can see that you are dealing with overall the same amount forward facing, which is nice. So a lot, not really too much confusion there. Still, threes up front, and with this Taranis here, you had the both of these had a detent in them. With the new X7, you get one that's got the detent on here, so the 50% mark is marked. This guy has smooth all the way through, and that's cool because you might have something down the line you want to fly where you have a middle point that you want to know where that mid's at. So this gives you that ability versus this, which is a smooth slider all the way around. So, two different uses, two knobs. These both have the detent in the middle, so it's kind of actually nice and advantageous that only one of these has it. So, back to other things on the front side, which we'll talk about, more probably later as far as the menu system goes, but just to touch base on now is the idea of the screen. So let's fire these guys up. So they say that the screen on this guy is only half the resolution of the screen on this guy, but I'm going to tell you what, due to font sizes and due to the organization side of it, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it doesn't matter. This screen looks just as good as this screen. The information is actually a little bit bigger. I personally like the way the screen's organized better than this screen. So an issue where the more expensive $200 model, $205 model, doesn't, I don't think you're losing anything. So there's, is it worth $100 to have this bigger screen with better resolution? I don't think so. Things are smaller. Look at the timer. Small, big on here. That makes sense. I want to glance. If you are flying line of sight and you glance down, what do you want to see? The timer right away? This guy's dying. We'll shut him off. So, there's a lot of reasons why this menu is nicer, which is kind of cool. So the screens is it's a wash. This is nice. So don't worry about the screen difference. From a software standpoint, you're on OpenTX on both, which is a fantastic operating system for radios, and you're going to get the same functionality with these way more ergonomic controls that are way easier to use than just these buttons. And I'm sure you're saying, well, Nick, you're kind of splitting hairs. They're the same buttons. They are, but they're not. On here we had menu, page, and exit. And on here we have page, menu, and exit. And even just the simple change in the order of these makes so much more sense. And anyone who uses this a lot, when they go to this, is going to be like, wow. Like the middle one brings up the menu, and then I page through it. That makes sense. The middle one brings up the next screen, then I can exit out. Like this interface here makes way more sense from a standpoint of just how much room it takes up on the face of the radio to how much easier it is to manipulate. Same thing with the whirligig pusher over here. You got plus, minus, and enter here. Now you got plus, minus, and enter there. I mean, yeah, it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other, but at the end of the day, I like the spinny whirligig presser more than these three tactile buttons here. So from a user experience, I think that the controls are probably better. More radios have dials to scroll through menus, and as menus get longer, the repeated button presses get kind of, it's kind of a annoyance. So this is definitely a bonus. One of the other things you probably noticed is the LED status light. You can see it's blue right now because the radio's in a form where I could fly with it, and all the switches were in their default positions, which you set up in the software so it knows when you turn it on to not send any signal out until they're all in their default position, so you can't accidentally turn this on and then have the arm switch armed if you set this up correctly. But the cool thing is that it provides you some feedback. So when you hold it in, one of the other nice differences is you actually have to hold this in. This switch is a very big on-off state switch, where this one, if you just tap it, it doesn't shut off. You hold it in, you can see the countdown until 4, and then it finally shuts off. A little haptic feedback, it vibrated in my hand, and then it's off. But you can see if you have the throttle up and say you have it armed and you try to turn it on.
Welcome to OpenTX. Throttle warning.
So you can see the light goes to red and you got a throttle warning.
Switch warning.
I fixed the throttle warning, but then I got a switch. So it tells me that SA needs bumped down. Now I got blue, now I'm ready to go. So the LED light and the status lights, vibration feedback, all that stuff, nice stuff. The vibration feedback and alarms are all on here too, but the LED status light makes it a little bit more obvious that there's a problem and that the radio is waiting in a state that you need to do something to get past. So again, another situation where the $105 radio seems nicer than the $205 radio. And I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments that talk about the details of why this is more money, and I think more channels, or this has more refined googly whatsits, or whatever it may be. I don't care about any of that. Like, that's cool stuff, but that's not why I do my channel. Like, I will leave the details to the experts who actually know what those details mean to them. I am more of the everyday flyer that has used this stuff day in and day out a million times and has just nitpicked about it over time and is excited to try to compare and contrast, you know, new gear with old gear and see where we're really at in this hobby. So getting back to it, you know, let's talk about, we talked a little bit about the ergonomics, but let's touch base on there again. So one of my issues was how wide and big this thing was, trying to get your hand around it. A lot of weird pokey things here to, like, not really, they don't really get in the way, but they're not exactly helping things either. And then you got this plastic, kind of this crappy grip material, nothing to really grip on anywhere. This is where this radio, again, at half the price, excels. Again, you get these nice little indentations, this little striations, or in search for a better word, all over the front and corner. Now, this isn't rubberized, mind you. It's the same plastic that this is, but it honestly feels like there's some grip there versus the other sides of the radio. So much like a gun hand grip that's plastic, yet feels like it's a little rubber when you get these kind of designs in there. That's how this kind of feels. But then as you move around to the back, you get these big, soft rubber hand grips. And let me tell you, when you hold the radio like this, you got your fingers along here. You know, you can see where your orientation of these switches is very well known because of these pronounced ridges. You know for sure you're in between there. And you look on the back, I don't know if you can even see this really anyway, but look at the fingers. Like, your fingers just right there, just hold on to those grips. So whoever, you know, spent some time with this realized that having some big rubber grips in the back might be advantageous, and it feels really good in my hands. I'm excited. I've only flown it for maybe 10 minutes so far. Felt really good. I definitely want to fly it and spend some more time with it. Make sure there's nothing weird ergonomically with it. Make sure my hands don't get, you know, fatigued over time or sore or cramped up from how you need to hold it if it's any kind of weird thing. But so far, you know, really, really liking the grips on the Taranis Q over the grip, or lack thereof, on the Taranis Plus. Now, as far as receivers go, I have D4R2s, I have X4Rs. Both of them were able to bind with this no problem. Took 2 seconds, and it's already bound. I'm not going to show you how it binds. There's plenty of videos on it. It's a pretty simple procedure. Hold down the bind button, plug in the battery, the receiver's ready, you hit bind in the menu, and it's done. So, you know, very simple. No need for me to go back into it. There's probably 10,000 videos that show it. So the receivers are a wash. You can use the same receivers across either. Gimbal-wise, I believe that these gimbals are about of the same quality between the two, this factory gimbals. Now, most of you guys know that the Taranis Plus just came, or they were just made available from FrSky, a set of new gimbals for this Taranis Plus, and I think they're only $40 retail, which is really cheap, and they're actually much better gimbals. Well, even though that upgrade does not fit this model, they are releasing those exact same gimbals in a set that are compatible with this radio very soon, and that's directly from FrSky's mouth to my ears. So that's really going to be great because we'll be able to have the nicer gimbals that you can upgrade this to by upgrading the $100 cheaper radio. So again, so far we're pretty much neck and neck still. Really haven't found a reason to spend the other $100 unless you really need more switches. One of the other things that I really like about this radio over the other Taranis is the positioning of some of the interfaces on the back. On here you had the headphone jack and the USB port and the trainer port all facing straight back, which is kind of bad if you sit down and flying kind of person, because if you sit down and maybe you're a pincher and you put it on your lap, you're kind of just crushing all those connections. If you're playing a simulator like the DRL simulator, which is a great simulator by the way, you want to set this down on your desk and go grab a beverage, and you can't because there's stuff sticking out the back. Well, this X7 has a little rubber door, and you give the door a little tuggy tug, and on the other side of the tuggy tug door you're going to see some ports. You got your USB, you got your SD card for your micro SD, and you got this other port here which looks like it's for a receiver or something. I don't know. Not sure what that port's for. Again, I have not read the instructions. I will look at them later and follow up with what that port's for in the comments. But they're all along the bottom, so if you set your radio down like this on its back, the cords are coming out, not into the table, which I dig. I think that's an advantage. One of the interesting things about this radio is that it does not come with the SD card, so make sure that you either have the ability to take the SD card out of this and move it over to there, or you have an extra SD card laying around for this. You don't need a really big one. I have a gigabyte one in there. You go to the FrSky website, download the card contents onto your computer. It takes less than 5 minutes. Throw them on the SD card, throw the SD card in, and you're ready to roll. That download has all the audio files and all the EEPROM stuff, all the firmware stuff and everything on it. So you download it, throw it on your own card, put it in, and you're good. So that's one of the ways they save you some money. Funny enough, $100 difference for a $5 SD card and a battery, which we're going to talk about. So this came with a battery, a nickel metal hydride 7.2 volt battery. This does not. Again, another reason to have the difference in price. But at $205 versus $105, even after you buy the battery and you buy an SD card, you could be really at maybe still 100 and what an SD card, $5 for a small SD card like that off Amazon. Let's say 10, so you're at 120. Or 115, I'm sorry, and then another $10 for the battery pack, or say $20 for the battery pack, so you're maybe at 140. Worst case scenario, 150 with tax, so you're still $55 cheaper going this route. And the cool thing is, which this doesn't have, and bear with me because you might disagree at first glance, is that behind the battery cover you're going to see a tray that holds AA batteries. Now this is a removable tray, so you can still use a nickel metal hydride pack or a LiPo or something like that. But it comes with this tray for AA's, and that's really awesome because when you're rolling through Detroit with your boys and you're flying like we do when we go visit Le Drib and Vortex, you don't have time to go recharging a radio pack. We're on to the next bando land, man. We're flying the bandos. And so I want to stop at my local CVS, grab myself a Gatorade and a pack of batteries, and know that I'm good with my radio for the next 6 months because these things last forever in here. So this is actually an advantage. And if you're a new pilot coming in, the fact that you only spend $105 and can go to your dollar store and spend $2 on batteries and be in the air is much easier than trying to figure out how to charge a new kind of pack that you may or may not have owned even before. So I'm going to say, props to FrSky, or to FrSky. FrSky, I just recently found out I was saying it wrong this whole time. So FrSky, to start with including this piece. And again, it pops out. You don't have to use it, but I'm using it. I like it. It's more convenient. One less thing to worry about. And maybe I'll change my mind over time, and in part 2 we'll laugh about it. But until then, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Now, battery door's back on, nice and stiff, feels good. It's a little bit different. It's not the shiny plastic that the rest of the back is. It's like a matte finish. Get a nice shot of those grippity grips. And so come back around, there's some differences in the antenna too, real quick. So this antenna, you know, I've always felt kind of like I was going to break it off maybe when I was packing it away. This guy's got some more meat and potatoes to it. You can see a little, the detents where it stops, much stiffer and stronger feeling, less play, and when you fold it down, feels like it's more sturdy than this antenna. So again, another case where the antenna gods seem to smile upon the new X7. Bear with me here. So let's see, talked about that. Let's talk about the fact that cost-wise, let's talk about something else about cost, but not about cost. So when you're out in the field and you're flying, every time we're out flying, we have people come up to us asking us what we have, what we're doing. We explain to them about the hobby. That's part of being a good hobbyist, is being a good steward to our hobby. So please take the time, explain what you're doing, maybe throw an extra set of goggles on them, take them up for their first ride, and really show them why we love what we do. But that being said, there are those times where you realize that you're in the field, and maybe you're in your local regional bando land, and you're just thinking, you know what, I have so much money and gear on me, just so much. And it's a scary thought. You know, we drive cars full of gear, and we carry a backpack full of a significant amount of money. And it's nice to be able to save $100 of that money when going into the hobby, and know that if something happens to the radio, if God forbid, you know, you get someone comes and takes it from you at a location, if you're in someplace remote, or if you leave it in your car and it gets broken into, or even just the knowledge that, okay, on my person right now in my backpack, there's $100 less of stuff to worry about. That to me is a pretty big thing too. So liking the fact that you can have this radio, have almost all of the benefits of this radio, and save yourself $100 of worry in the backpack or in your car or in the trunk, which is cool. So I think that's something to consider. The other thing to consider is that FrSky has a receiver combo FC coming out that looks pretty slick. That's something I'm anxious for, all in one that. So I like having a separate PDB, but give me that FC receiver combo. I'll dig that all day. Excited for it. So you get that with the Taranis. One of the other things I'm excited about is micro receivers. I'm going to have a little inset. It'll be right up here. Bing! And it's going to show you a smaller FrSky or FrSky receiver compared to the X4R. Really cool. Great for 3-inch builds, which we do have. So another cool thing that's just coming out is those small receivers. And so just to try to wrap this up for these first impressions, I know it's kind of getting long here, and I know there has been a lot of technical side and a lot of opinion, but I really felt like, you know, I wanted to get these things out while they were fresh in my mind. For the guy that owns the Taranis Plus but has always thought it was kind of maybe a little overkill hardware-wise, or didn't feel that they needed some of the other stuff, like switches and things, like myself, who was more worried about breaking things off in their backpack rather than just having all this extra, this guy takes the cake for that. For the guy that wants to be able to replace his batteries with AA's off the shelf when he's out and about and just keep on flying, this one wins the battle there again. When it comes back to user interfaces, I think this one wins with the less buttons and the rotary thingama-whirly thingamajobber. I think it's better. And so, you know, when it comes down to brass tacks, if you have this radio and you're looking for something a little different that maybe you can hold a little easier and that's a little bit safer to throw in your bag and doesn't cost quite as much, you're not missing out by switching to this. I'm absolutely, after flying this for 10 minutes and reviewing this and going over this, you know, for several hours now, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to go to this format and sell my Taranis. That's a pretty bold statement after having this for 2 years and being relatively, you know, elated with it. I mean, that's cool. And I the best part about it is that I feel good because I'm able to use all my old receivers to get a totally new feel and a new style out of a radio. For those new coming into the hobby, I mean, unless this thing explodes in my hands like a Samsung phone, I'm going to have to say that this is the obvious choice now for anyone coming in the door. If you want low-cost receivers that are reliable, some of the most reliable the industry's ever seen, you can't beat this radio and a receiver from FrSky. So instead of, you know, if you're new to the hobby and somebody's telling you to buy the Taranis Plus, kindly tell them that you love the Taranis Plus as a radio, but that for you, functionality-wise, ergonomics-wise, this is going to be the radio I believe that a lot of first-time pilots are going to start to flock to. And for me, after almost 4 years in the hobby and 3 years with this guy, I'm pretty excited to have this as its replacement. So even though position-wise and cost-wise, this guy is $100 less at $105, I'm going to have to say that I personally like the feature set it has and like the style of it, like the grips and like everything more than I like this radio. So I'm going to leave you on that note. Those are my opinions as always. Please share yours down below in the comments. Down below in the comments. Yes, down below in the comments. And, you know, give me some feedback. Tell me what you liked about what I had to talk about. Tell me what you didn't like. Tell me if you want me to talk slower like this, or if you want me to talk lower like this. I love hearing feedback from you guys, so thank you for watching. I hope you guys got some good info out of it. And fly safe. MQC for life.